Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders with Marketing Huddle, and today we have with us Eric Fritzke, who is the principal and team leader with Trinity team at Keller Williams Preferred Realty. Welcome to the program, Eric.
Good morning, Mike.
Hey, so let's just get started with give us a little bit of background on yourself and what even led you into the real estate business. I always love hearing the stories of entrepreneurs that, one day I got the bug to start my own business or get into this field or that industry. So what's your story of what led you to real estate?
Sure, yeah. So this was my mentor and partner, and also happens to be my stepdad that I grew up with, Gordon Ballinger. He's been in the real estate industry for about 40 years now, and back it was I think late, or I should say early to mid 90s, as the market started to improve at that time. He started talking to me about, potentially coming over and joining him, and with him and his team at Remax at that time, and so he kind of worked on me for a couple years, and finally I decided to take the plunge. In '96, started taking my real estate licensing courses, and was licensed by the beginning of '97. So that was kind of the start of it all, and it's been a pretty fun ride since then.
You said something interesting that I think we could probably pause on and talk for hours upon hours on. But it seems to me that you just described you getting into this industry from a relationship. And I think that when we think about business, life, personal, corporate, whatever we want to think of it in light of, relationships are so key. And you may have seen an email from some other broker dealer that said, come work for us, and delete. So what do you feel the power of relationships is in, finding a position, in hiring people, in anything related to business?
I think that I can't think of anything that's bigger or a bigger key than the relationship piece. Certainly in our industry, it's probably, if not the most important, one of the most important things. I think of the old adage of people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, and that typically starts with relationship. And even the initial piece of our process is really about building rapport and relationship with the client, so that we can know them better and they can know us better, and that's really the foundation for our process moving forward.
Yeah, I want to give you the opportunity to build on that, because I'm going to ask a question that I know you realize some people, can not answer the way you would, which is, I think it sounds cliche to say, we value relationships, or we, want to build and go deeper. And I know you do it, but what are some ways that you show that? What is a client or a prospective client of yours going to notice, and maybe that would set you apart from other agents in the realm of relationships? So, they're going to start off, even from the first time talking, but then even moving through your process and working with and contracting and things like that. But what are some of those things? What does that look like when you take it to a deeper level and value them as a person, not just a commission check?
Yeah, good question. I think that something that I found, and one thing that I've really latched onto from one of my early real estate mentors was being a good listener and a good question asker. So as I listen at a deeper level than I think most sales people do, or just people in general, and also ask good questions to really get down and drill down to what I refer to as what that drip of pain or motivation is. And I sincerely and honestly want to know what that is so I can truly, help them meet their needs. And so when I first sit down with somebody, either, and it may be, initially it's usually over the phone typically, but certainly in person, I probably spend a good half hour, 45 minutes, sometimes it's an hour, just really asking a bunch of questions, learning about them, finding out again what it is, why they're making the decision they're making, because as we know, people make decisions emotionally and then justify logically, right? So if we find out what that true emotional motivation is, and what it is at a deep level to serve the client, I think that's a big thing that sets us apart. And just kind of one last comment that I think solidifies that. I was talking with my wife the other day, and she was meeting with an old high school friend of ours that's I think he's some sort of manager or lead guy over a big sales team at a fairly large company. And she said, as I was sitting there and we were catching up and just talking because they hadn't connected in a long time, she just said he just was not a very good listener, and it just amazes me on a regular basis how salespeople in general aren't good listeners.
That's, again, I'll say this for the second time here, but that one point right there we could talk about for hours on end. And I interview a lot of top people in sales and even some Inc. 5000 recipients from 2016, and I do hear that a lot, that sometimes it's those, or I'll just say many times, it's those little things that tend to be the biggest impact. And when they are left out, like what you said your wife noticed, it almost becomes like this shock of cold water, like, ooh, hey, that didn't feel too good. Mm-hmm. And I think that even if a prospective client doesn't consciously think that way, they feel it and they sense it. And I think that you can say you do those things and, check off the box and check off this, but in reality, it's not being done. And I would say to you at this point, how do you then use some things that are like a mix of technology in your real estate business that enhances that relationship? Because you can't just live on technology and hide behind technology.
Sure. So, I think in addition to all the nice technology tools that we have, there's still some basic fundamentals when it comes to serving the client. And really, a lot of it or most of it has to do with communication. So, typically, I'm checking in with people on a pretty regular basis, whether that be, once or twice a week or, at whatever point through the relationship or transaction that it requires, right? So I think the communication piece, whether I'm chatting with somebody that's, more of our generation or an older generation, they typically like to get a phone call, right? They're not as apt to be looking at maybe
like a tweet. You're not going to tweet them and say, here's the update.
Exactly. Yeah. Where maybe a millennial might say, hey, text me or tweet me or email me. So, again, that's part of that process up front is to say, what's the best way you like to communicate?
Yeah.
And not to say that, I wouldn't maybe call them when it's necessary if they say I like tweets or texts or emails, but again, just tailor it to what the client wants.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. And I think that you set yourself up, or people would set themselves up for when you ask that question, you better then deliver on it. You can't say, what do you prefer? And they say, oh, I prefer phone calls. And then you're just texting them all the time because the boss wanted you to fill out this checklist of, intake forms for a new client. Well, they want to feel like they're listened to, and then they want to see that you did follow through on that. And maybe that's a little extra mental work for you and your team to go, ooh, Mr. Jones likes some texts here and there, and Mrs. Johnson likes a phone call here and there. Not to say you can't have a little bit of a mix, but you want to have it weighted on one side or the other. I think that's right. A really, really huge point. So tell me about your agency. I know that if you think of the phrase or the term real estate, boy, that is very vast. So what is your focus, and what would prospective clients be looking for that you can assist them with?
Yeah, so that's a good question, Mike. We actually have three different focuses within our team, which is I think unique and unique certainly I think in the industry, but certainly to our team as well. But so Gordon and I, my partner Gordon I mentioned earlier, he and I focus primarily on the commercial real estate side. We also have a residential team, which we're adding some new agents here as we speak and through this first and second quarter. And then we also have a property management division, which we manage single-family townhome condos as well as small to medium-sized commercial properties. So I think that answers your question as to what we focus on. We do have three different aspects that we focus on, and I think they all interchange well, because oftentimes we find that our commercial clients then need property management services, and even our residential for that matter, and so it tends to be a good synergy between the three.
Yeah, so you said it's kind of like what sets you apart, and I call it a competitive advantage. Why would, I mean, it seems logical that it would be unique, but in your industry, is it, I mean, would you have a client that sometimes would have to go to one firm to get some properties managed and then another firm to, handle another type of transaction? But what convenience or what benefit does that bring a client when it's all under your one roof?
Yeah, absolutely. So as an example, 4 or 5 years ago, I think most of us remember some of the not just financial issues as a whole, but certainly the real estate industry got hit pretty hard too. And oftentimes, if people, let's say for instance, needed to move out of state, but they were underwater on their house, meaning that they owed more than what they could sell it for. In that case, we were able to look at what was the rental market, and oftentimes we were able to, at the very least, cover what their mortgage expense was, and in many cases, have them make $100, $200 or more a month over what their mortgage cost was. So that allowed them some time. It bought them some time to wait for the market to recover, and even since then, we've sold some houses for some clients, for a profit where they wouldn't have been able to do that at the time.
Yeah, and maybe the times have moved to where it's the underwater is not as much of an aspect, but still life happens, and still someone may need to move out of town, and depending on their equity position, they may need, want to consider, why don't we just rent this for X number of years? Maybe we're going to be coming back in a handful of years and want to get back in our own house, or, maybe we want the tax write-off, and, you've referred us to a good tax accountant that is telling us if we had this as a write-off or a cash flow, that would be a good decision. So rather than, just high-fiving you going, well, hope I can find someone to help me with that, you guys are bringing that to them, and it's just a seamless relationship there. I think that's really a great competitive advantage.
Yeah, I think so. It allows us to provide that service and keep them in-house and, continue to build that relationship. And I think to your point, we do see where maybe somebody moves out of state, temporarily for a job for a few years, but they want to hold on to that property and be able to come back, because they're still calling it home. And so we're able to help them along those lines.
Yeah, so when I hear residential real estate, I feel that it's pretty obvious that it would be some person or family looking to buy or sell a home. And there's many nuances in that and intricacies. But on the commercial side, what would be a trigger or a point of reference that someone that may be not even realize that a commercial transaction may benefit them? What would be something that they could go, oh, wait a minute, that's coming up in my near future. Maybe I should consider a commercial transaction. What would an example of that be?
One of the first things that comes to mind is because I'm involved with a couple of different networking groups, and sometimes at the beginning, whether a new person comes in or whether it's just a new relationship that I'm building with somebody, they might ask, well, it seems difficult for me to understand or know how to refer you somebody. And so my natural response is I love introductions to business people. Business people typically, in some form or fashion, at some point, if they may need or require some commercial real estate services. So specifically, I think you asked about a purchase. If somebody owns a business and they're leasing space, whether it be retail or office or maybe industrial, oftentimes I speak with business owners, and they're 6 months or a year out from their lease expiring, and just like those of us that own our homes or have investment properties for the advantages that it gives us, in terms of the tax write-offs and those types of things. Business owners can purchase commercial real estate for their business, and it offers them the same type of advantages, appreciation of the property over time, the tax write-offs, all those things that I would equate to owning residential real estate.
And do you find that sometimes business owners almost don't think of that? If they think, oh, I need to buy my home because it's the American dream and I get tax breaks and I get appreciation and I need to go find a place to lease for my business. Do you find that it's almost like it's not as a simple, easy jump to think about buying, even though they might easily be able to afford it? It's just kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess I could consider that. It seems like there's almost a breakdown when you think about the business side of real estate.
Yeah, certainly, and not every business is a fit to purchase commercial real estate, because certainly, many of your retail businesses need to be in a retail location for that reason, and that's not as readily available to purchase a retail, location for an individual business. As it might be some of the other aspects, and that can even be the case with office too. But yeah, absolutely. And I think for that reason, because of whatever either location constraints or maybe the size of the space that they're occupying. For instance, a couple thousand square foot office user might not think, hey, I can go buy an office condo because of the size of what they've got there.
Mm-hmm. I think that once they start exploring that and then see some of the financial benefits and things like that, that's the deal maker. But I would also think that there's another aspect that plays into it. And literally yesterday I was listening to a podcast from an influencer in the marketing world that I follow, and he was saying that, hey, we're moving into a new building and our whole offices, and it's fun to see the furniture. But then he just went almost just off the charts excited because he was like, and we're buying this building and we're not and it was kind of like this, he was normally if you say we're moving, it's like, yeah, just keep an eye out and we're going to send you the new address. But this guy just went crazy going, this is our building, it's our building. And you can just tell that when his team is, they're just getting amped up and just that whole inner, feeling of ownership. And that same thing, it happens on the personal side for residential, but I think that's that intangible of who knows with employee satisfaction and longevity and keeping employees and productivity, all those things could even play into buying the building and as well as the financial benefit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, so what, as we wrap up here, what's the best way that someone can learn more about your team and your comprehensive services? What's the best place that they can reach out and learn more from you?
Well, I think naturally our website is now appropriate to give that address.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the best URL to use?
Yeah, so we're at trinityteamrealestateco.com. And that's just how it sounds. It's Trinity Team Real Estate, obviously 2 words, but all together, and then CO is for Colorado.com.
CO. Excellent.
Yep. And then
is there a main phone line that people could call in as well?
Yeah, so we do have a main team line that goes to our assistant Hope, and that's 303-539-5468.
Excellent. Well, Eric, it was really great getting to know you, learning more about your business, and thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time as well, sir.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneurssradio.com.